Hi, Stephanie. Looking forward again to having you speak at the PMI Central Mass Chapter Professional Development Day series we're having in September. Um, One of the things that we'd like to do is to just give people, a sense of what those sessions are going to be like. One of the questions that we've had people ask is, kind of what has changed with people being in isolation, and is there any research in this? And I know that's something you'll be covering in one of the sessions.
Yeah, I will be. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to joining and having lots of conversations. I think it's going to be really, really valuable for us for bridging distance as well, because I love the interchange. Um, Last July, so July of 2019, we do research every year. Last year's research project was the impact of digital isolation and loneliness on workplace productivity. So we have the findings for that we're going to talk about. Um, but some of the preliminary ones that we are discussing is, again, this idea of formalizing the ad hoc, formalizing the sense um, of of informality, or being able to reach out. So, how do you find somebody in their queue? How do you go to their office? Pass each other in the hallway, chat briefly before or after a meeting in person. You need to formalize those structures so that people don't feel so isolated. And when we did our research, we actually looked at both isolation and loneliness. So isolation is an external construct. So it's a construct that says, Gail, you are in your home office, I am in my home office. So we are isolated because we're in different locations. So that's a construct external to us, and really often driven by the corporation or the organization. Loneliness is an internal construct, because it's how I feel, or do I identify myself as lonely or not lonely. So in our research, for example, we found that some people were working remotely, and so were isolated physically from the rest of their team all or most of the time, weren't necessarily feeling lonely. Um, they may have felt engaged. It depends on their styles, introvert, extrovert, in terms of Myers-Briggs or disc types. All of those come into play, are really key. We also found that people who are in an office, in a building in, Waltham or Worcester or, San Francisco, um, may have felt lonely, and so they could be surrounded by people and still feel lonely because they weren't connected with their teams. So when we talk about being able to add value, have presence with each other, this idea of having people get to know each other so that you can bridge some of those distances, in order to overcome some of the sense of any distrust that might, and really build it. So again, um, formalizing that becomes important. Another one is really adhering to team norms. And so it's not enough just to say, we're going to have a team launch and here's how we're going to do it. But as a leader and a project manager, to be able to say, how are we going to adhere to those? So having a conversation as a team about what happens when somebody breaks the norms or doesn't follow them. How do you do that? Because often in a distributed environment, it's harder to recognize, and might take longer to recognize, that somebody's not, following the team norms or the charter or what it happens to be. And then lastly, allowing people to share of themselves and finding ways in which they can again know what value they add, but also um, sort of creating personhood, and the sense that technology can dehumanize relationships. So you have to use your meetings and available tools to rehumanize those so that people matter to each other. So those are a couple of things, and we'll share more during the session in terms of some other concrete things that we found and learned in our research.
That's great. It sounds fantastic. I think these are going to be great sessions. And thanks again, Stephanie.
Yep, we're really looking forward to it. And again, for people who are taking a look at these, feel free to send questions ahead of time, or reach out to us or to any of the Central Mass PMI folks with questions or things that we want to know that we might be able to cover. So I'd like to see you all in September.